All right, everyone. Guys, before we get started today, just a quick thank you to Troy for putting everything together. This is a great opportunity. I'm very excited to be a part of it. Thank you for the opportunity. So Troy, thanks very much for that, as well as to all the speakers who kind of participated in this too. I hope you guys have learned a lot so far, and I hope I can help out a little bit along the way. Throughout my presentation, if anyone has any questions or anything like that, please don't hesitate to raise your hands and stop me. I'm going to ask some questions along the way as well, so hopefully I can get a few responses and we'll keep this as interactive as possible. Lastly, what I'd like to always talk to people about these sessions is that what I'm going to talk about is what works for us at the Oakland Athletics. Now, what works for us at the Oakland Athletics doesn't necessarily, everything might not translate across to a different market or a different league. So my hope is that when I present in a session like this, you might get 2 or 3 things that you can take back and implement right away. Not everything's going to translate, but maybe there's 2 or 3 things that if you're a young rep and you're looking to be a manager one day, that you might look at and want to start implementing when you become a manager. So not everything's going to translate, but like I said, hopefully you can pick up a few things along the way, and that would be great. So before we get started here, let's go on to the first slide. Hiring and building a culture, obviously it starts with the interview. When I interview someone, or our managerial team interviews someone, we're looking for one thing at first, and that's basically the ability to present yourselves clearly. It's nice to have sales accolades, it's nice to have stats, everything like that, but we really are just looking for them to present themselves clearly. I don't need the super professional, polished rep to come in right off the bat. Sometimes I'm looking for where I would like them to be a project. I might just look for them to come in and say they don't have any refined sales skill, they're going to be a project, but they can talk, they're excited on the phone, that's okay. So I'm not always looking for that polish. I'm okay taking on projects as long as they can present themselves properly. Now, a couple of interview questions that I like to ask. This is one of my favorites here. Let's say I have someone I'm on the fence about, and I want to see how long they can keep me engaged to hold my attention for. So I'll ask them to think about any topic that they have in their mind that they feel that they're an expert on. It can be anything, personal or professional. I'll let them know I have a stopwatch in front of me, and I want to hear them talk for 1 minute and 30 seconds. It's always interesting, because if you want someone to hire, if you want to hire someone, a good sales rep, they can't go on and talk for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Granted, you are supposed to obviously listen more than you talk in sales, but if they can't keep me engaged on a topic that they're an expert in for 1 minute and 30 seconds, that's a little bit of an issue for me. And I'll tell you one story. I had a kid that I interviewed, and I said, okay, you got your topic in mind? He's like, yeah, I want to talk about why I'm a San Francisco Giants fan. That's not the right answer. So I got no problem with the Giants. I know a lot of friends over at the Giants. I got a lot of respect for the organization. But we talk about taking back 2 or 3 things. If you ever go on an interview in a 2-team market, please don't talk about why you're a fan of the other team in that market. Okay? That's probably the most important takeaway so far. A second question I always like to ask is, sometimes you'll be interviewing someone and you get the rehearsed responses. You're asking them about where they want to be in 5 years, what their biggest accomplishment is, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses, and you kind of get those rehearsed responses throughout, almost robotic. I like to basically mix in a question, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite number? Just something like that, because I want to make sure that these people can think on their feet. They're not going into just, robotic mode. Because if you do that on the phone as a sales rep, you're going to lose. It's not going to work out for you. So I like to kind of throw it off a little bit, mix in a random question, and see how they react, because they're obviously not expecting it. Now I want to kind of ask the group here, any managers out there, favorite interview questions to ask?
So I used to hire for an inside sales rep, recent college graduate, and one of our AEs on the team came up with a fantastic question. It was like, hey, if University of Minnesota is going to be throwing an alumni party, and you get invited, what type of person are you at that party?
That's a good one.
So we can get a feel of how they would interact at the party.
That's great. Anybody else? This is great for me. I mean, selfishly, I want to learn a little bit, help out.
We're interviewing several different candidates for this position. What makes you the right fit for the job?
Okay, that's a good one. Anybody else?
Sometimes we use the question of where do you want to be next week. I know not using the 5 years down the road, but we've only gotten one response of getting a job. So it's looking for somebody that closes and whatnot. That's it's kind of elite. That candidate didn't work out, but it's a question that, like you said, keeps them thinking on their feet and where they want to be.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's great.
I asked, what did you know about the position to 11 candidates? Only 2 could tell me. Do these people have master's and bachelor's degree? They knew nothing about the position.
Isn't that funny when they just don't take the time to research anything about the team or the organization, whatever it may be? Anyone else?
Especially in the sales role, we like to have a little bit of fun, see if they're outgoing. So we'll ask them, "What's your favorite song right now?" "I don't know how that one goes. Will you sing it for me?"
That's great. Just to see how they come out of the shell, you know? All right, guys, move on now. So we get them hired in, and now we're evaluating these ADs over the first 3 to 6 months. 3 things we look for. One is their attitude, and by attitude more than anything else, a lot of times I'm looking for coachability. We'll hire people from different teams, and that's great. And what I always tell people when I hire from different teams is, one, I want to respect their training program. Okay, I want to make sure that they have a good process in place. And then when they come here, I want them to take the best of what they've learned from that other organization, and then I want them to also blend in what they're going to learn to be successful at the Oakland Athletics. So the worst thing you want to hear when you bring someone in is, well, at this company we did it this way, at this company we did it this way. And that's okay to an extent, but you want them to be coachable and you want them to buy into your system, and again, take the best of what they've learned at another organization. And I'll hire the organizations that I have trusted and belief in their training program. And when you do that, it usually helps out and you don't run into those types of issues. Number 2 is effort. Really not much else to say there. It goes without saying. And lastly, integrity. This is probably the biggest core value that I look for above all else in my reps. As you can see up there, best described is doing the right thing when no one else is watching. So when I first came up with the Oakland Athletics, we had a little bit of a culture issue there. There wasn't much integrity. For example, brokers, right? We're not supposed to sell to brokers, we're supposed to pass those off to someone else. Next thing you know, someone gets a random call in for 30 full season tickets that they're using for family and friends. They try to sneak that one by. Things like that. When you have issues like that in place, integrity issues, culture issues, they can really throw off an entire department. I mean, even let's even get more granular on it with that broker side. If it's a big deal to be on top of the board at the end of the week, and then you let something like that slide by putting a sale up that's not a legitimate sale, you've demotivated everyone below that person on the board. It's a huge, huge deal. So for me, I would look at it more than anything else and say integrity is that core value that I look for. And I'll come back to it a few times throughout this presentation. Next up, these are the 3 things that I'm constantly evaluating. By the way, the Silicon Valley slide has nothing to do with any of these. I just let you know. So if you don't watch it, you're looking for a new show to get started on, it's fantastic. So I'll throw that one out there as well. But these are 3 things that I'm constantly evaluating. People, product, and pricing. So I call them 3 Ps, 3 obvious. So with people, it's not always what their sales skill is or what their numbers are. More than anything, we're always looking forward and saying with people, do we have them in the right seat on the bus? So all of our account executives are full menu. They sell groups, suites, season tickets. After a few months or 6, 8 months, you might look at it and say, this person is a better group rep than a season rep, or this person is a better suite rep than a group rep. And that's okay. So it's a task on us as managers and directors to put these people in a position to be successful. So you have to evaluate their skill set and make sure that if they're not going to be as strong on the group side, but they're better on the season side, well, maybe their goal is $25K higher on that end and then $25K lower, the $25,000 lower on the other. That's okay. Like I said, that's the responsibility of management to make sure that your people are in the best possible situation to succeed. Secondly is product. Little example we had at the Oakland Days, probably about 5-6 years ago. We had this suite. It's called the Skyview Terrace. Okay. Not a great suite. We probably sold it for 15 to 18% of the games. And I'd always look at it and say, why are people not coming back to it? Why are reps afraid to sell it? There were basically questions on exactly what the menu was. It changed up a little bit. They weren't sure what they were pitching or what they were selling. Now, what did we do? We basically went in, we put some paint on the back wall, we put 4 new TVs in, okay? And we put some, current marketing signs up with the current campaign, and we changed the menu up. And in a 2-year period, we went from 15 to 18% occupancy up to 85 to 90% occupancy. And my point is that sometimes with your product, if you've ever been to the Oakland Coliseum, it's not the nicest ballpark, to be honest. So we're not going to go in and change everything up. We're not going to be able to go in and blow out walls and create new suites and change products drastically. But sometimes those simple little changes that you look at within your product line, if you make a little tweak, they can have a huge positive effect on your bottom line. And that comes when you're talking to your reps. If you look at an area that's not successful or is decreasing, the renewal rate isn't high, talk to your reps. They'll clue you in as to what the problem is. And like I said, sometimes it's the simplest little tweaks that you can make that can have a huge effect on your bottom line. Lastly, pricing. Now everyone has their overall, every organization, team, overall global strategy on pricing. What I'm talking about are the little tweaks that can kind of get you incremental gains. And when you measure those across a rep and across multiple reps, again, you can also have a big impact on your bottom line. So a good example on this would be group sales for us. When we roll out group sales, we'll train everyone up and say, anyone who wants to buy tickets, for example, on our plaza level, if you, for $3 more, you can get down on the field level. It sounds so simplistic on that, but if you have that across all product lines, just a few simple areas for them to pay attention to that you can train them up and get it down to be a habit. Anytime someone asks for this, pitch up one. Let's use that example. Someone does a 25 ticket group, $3, there's $75. Multiply that across 20 sales, multiply it across 30 reps, and then it becomes more significant. So again, my point on the pricing part of it is that if you just have a few small incremental areas that you train the reps on to pitch up, it can have a large effect. Anyone in the room, has anyone done any interesting things on their product line, any little tweaks or changes that have been some success stories? Everyone's had the same stadium for the last 3 years, no changes? All right, thank you.
We took some seats out and put some boxes there, and kind of like baseball, but we're more speed basic. Put some seats out, put some large boxes there, brand over the company's name, and it really gets sold out, and people are in line wanting it.
And what was the reason for the switch?
We wanted to do something different, and also the fact that, of course, the stadium wasn't filled. We seat 150,000. So when we sell like 80, 90, 100,000, it looks empty, but it's not. So maybe a little changes, and also we don't want to stay the same all the time.
That's great. Yep.
We added Motors seating at the top of our 200 level for the Penguins AA affiliate in Wheeling, and I think all but one of them sold out for an entire season. Like people bought them for whole seasons, and I think every weekend we had a game, we got at least 10, 15 calls asking if any of them were available. And luckily, we got to say no because they were sold.
That's great. That's a good thing. And what was the reason for the change there?
We've just been, for the last 3 years, we've been just adding little improvements to our arenas, whether it's seating, premium seating, or just aesthetically, we're making our arena a lot more modern.
And when you first, if you don't mind me asking, if you first made those changes, how did you get those changes out into the marketplace? Did you go to your current accounts? Did you advertise it somewhere?
Advertising and online, and just calling some of our corporate sponsors and saying we have new options available for premium seating.
Okay, thanks. All right, we'll move on. So, managerial philosophy. I feel like I've been asked this question a lot. I always ask it when I interview for a manager. I'm sure you guys have all been asked the question along the way if you are managers. So I kind of wanted to, at one point, just get all of my values together and just kind of say, okay, this is what I stand for. This is how I do things. This is how we're going to operate at the Oakland A's. And it's pretty simple. It's pretty basic. But it makes sense. So the first one here, manage the process, not the results. Another one of my favorite shows, by the way. That's Coach Taylor there from Friday Night Lights. So if I come back to another one of these, I think next time I'm just going to get like 15 Coach Taylor quotes and turn it into a presentation. I think that would be just as good. But success is not a goal, it's a byproduct. What this means here is you can't go in with your reps and, you gotta make more phone calls, you gotta make more sales, we gotta hit this number. I mean, you gotta have some motivation and that's okay along the way, but you really gotta get into the X's and O's. And you can't do that unless you sit down and find out, what their issues are. So if someone's struggling and you bring them in for a one-on-one meeting, they might not even know what's wrong. So it's important in that situation to go ahead through, sit down, listen to them make some phone calls, and watch their process. Really focus on that process. And again, it sounds so simplistic. And, I'll pick out Brett from the crowd here. He comes in, he's trained our group for a little bit, and we agree on it that we might have a different process or a different method, and it's less important what that process is than that there is a process in place to make sure that people have standard operating procedures. And if you do that and you realize you get the reps to buy in and say, if you operate this way, you're going to have success. So you manage that process, you don't manage the results. Again, we come back to integrity, number 2. Why do I have a picture of a book there? A little personal story. This is something that stuck with me for my entire life. I grew up in the Boston area. I must have been 8, 9 years old, driving to the local mall with my dad, walking to the mall, walking to a bookstore, and then we find ourselves back in the car, and my dad's just like, and she's like, I walked up with this book, I didn't even pay for it. And then he was going to go back in. I'm like, well, why would you go back in? You have the book. You don't need to go back in. He's like, we don't do things that way. That's not the way you do it. And it sounds so simplistic, but it's just something that stuck with me all the way through the rest of my life. And I just realized that I don't even know how it impacts me in a managerial way, but I just feel like that story is one of the most vivid memories of my childhood, and it stuck with me ever through and helped me out my personal career, my professional career, all the way through. Lastly, be genuine. It sounds so simple. It sounds so easy. This goes if you're a rep, it goes if you're a manager. We all have faults, we all have flaws, we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, and they're who make us who we are. They're what makes us successful. And if you're a rep and you're trying to be someone that you're not, okay, that's going to come across on the phone. And I was telling the story a little bit where if you have a rep, you're early on, you've been there for a month, okay? Put yourself, if someone calls you up, okay, and they're trying to sell you a product, they go through their pitch, and they say, you know what, I really don't know the answer to your question. I've only been there for about a month. Do you mind if I put you on hold and I ask my manager, I want to make sure to give you the correct information? That's endearing. You're going to value that because you know that they care enough not to give you the wrong information. It's the same thing on managerial end as well. When you're talking to your reps, you got to talk more than just numbers. And you have to be able to be okay with them, seeing your faults and your flaws. I mean, my staff will always give me a hard time because I'm a little, I guess the best way to put it is neat and clean around the office. So I'm always tidying up, picking up things. That's me. That's who I am. So I never want to put on that shield and put myself on a pedestal with my staff. I like to go in and talk to them and see how their weekend was. I want to talk about them personally, not just professionally. And when you do have those conversations, it's a Monday morning. I think reps will, if you walk in there, it's not like I'm ready to rock every Monday and I'm excited about everything. It's okay to come in and relate to them and walk around, and when everyone's kind of not on the phones yet, you don't want to have that powwow. You just want to go around. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just check in with them personally and see how their weekend was. It makes a big difference. So overall, those are the 3 core values of my managerial philosophy, but I'd be interested to hear anything here from the group. So any managers out there or wherever you're at, what is your managerial philosophy? Getting crickets here, guys. Someone's got to help me out. All right, no one wants to share. Well, I'll tell you what.
Yours are dead on. That's people that get to the management role, that's what they're going to do.
That's it right
So
there.
that's kind of what it is. I mean, I am a manager, I have values, and I have on the same line, so don't sweat sales, sweat the process. And then I have, be professional at all times. And I use something on the lines of, every night opening night. You never know when it's going to be the first time someone's in your venue. But other than that, group 3, I think, are pretty straight on.
Thank you.
What most people are.
Great. Judy?
To care and walk beside your people. We talked about that a little earlier. Just walk beside them so that they trust you and will come to you with things that they need from you. They won't do that with fear.
great.
Have fun. I mean, we're in sports, if you're not having fun, you gotta make sure you're having a good time.
I think that's fantastic. I think people realize, like, it's a grind. You know, I mean, especially where every job in sports can be a grind. The baseball end, it's 81 games a year. It can be a lot. But realize that you're working in baseball, right?
One of the really fun things about working with your staff, and I've talked about this before, is just celebrate the challenges you have in front of you. We're not all in situations with huge brands and products. In fact, most of this room isn't in that situation. So celebrating the challenges of what we have in front of us and making sure that when we have those success stories, we're celebrating those success stories and having fun in that process, I think. That's one of the reasons it's a lot of fun to work with your group, is they really celebrate the challenge they have in front of them. And that's, I've seen a lot of places where it's not that, right? It's the excuses, it's we can't do this because of this. And I think when you celebrate the challenges they have in front of you, it makes the process a lot more fun.
Yeah, we celebrate the fact that Stewart's backed up in our stadium 3 times in the past couple of years and it wasn't about that. So it's good to have that challenge, you know? Yeah, there you go. Anyone else?
Say just like along the lines of like embracing like a team culture, like including them in, you know, decisions that are going to affect the entire team, you know, and at least asking for opinions, and whether they're, you know, accepted or not is another story, but it's just, you know, making everybody feel inclusive in, you know, where the team's going.
I think that's a great one. When you make them part of the process and you open it out there and ask for suggestions, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to incorporate all of them. But when you put that out there, they feel like they're part of the process, so they're going to want to have more of a stake in having success. I think that's a great one. Anything else? All right, guys. So, with, you know, this is kind of a hot topic nowadays. It seems to be coming up in you know, a lot of sessions. Career growth is what new reps are looking for more than anything else. You know, there's people that are financially motivated, that's important. But when reps come in nowadays, this, you know, millennial generation, whatever you want to call it, they want to see a path to promotion. They want to know how they can kind of grow their career. So it's important from a managerial level to embrace that. And I always talk about that in the interviews. I tell them that my #1 goal is your career growth. You know, I would love to have people grow within the department and move up from an account executive to a senior account executive to a manager to a director. That's the dream. That's great. If not, can they move on to another role within the organization in a managerial role? Back there, we got Matt Knightsett with the Oakland Athetics. He started as a rep for me and then worked his way over to a premium service manager role. So that's great as well. Thirdly, if they're going to move on from the A's, I love it when they move on and they're promoted to higher roles elsewhere. You guys earlier on, I believe, heard from Jessica Smith. She's the director of corporate partnerships with the Oakland A's. I'm sorry, with the Columbus Blue Jackets. She started as an account executive with the Oakland A's. That's fantastic. I mean, that's the best thing that we can put out there, is that we can grow people's careers. So whenever I talk to reps during the interview process, I want to make sure that they know that that is my focus. So it was kind of a shock at first, I'd say probably 7, 8 years ago when I took over as director, that we didn't have sales reps that were there for 10, 15 years doing the same role. You know, everyone in the A's organization, you come in, you work there for 25 years, no one leaves, no one moves on. It's okay to have that movement in sales, and you want that movement in sales. So the understanding that not everyone's going to be there forever, that's okay. And you want them to move on, and you want to develop them and get them into higher roles. But what do you have to do? You have to prepare them, and you have to teach beyond the job. So first and foremost, you've got to teach them how to work within your system. So we got to teach them how to sell Oakland A's baseball. But the skill set can't be so finite that that they're not going to be able to operate elsewhere. So how do you do that? You got to do little things. I mean, we've brought in Brett a couple times, a professional sales trainer, to get a different perspective from not just the A's, but across sports as a whole. I was in a session the other day and at our league meetings, and a gentleman from the Mets, Kenny, was interesting. What they do is they will have a certain industry, I think it was title insurance. They'll task 2 reps or 3 reps to go over and research everything about title insurance, how the companies make money, how many companies are out there, what type of leads they're dealing with, and then those reps will then present to the rest of the staff and educate them on it. So not only is it going to make those reps better that are learning about, you know, title insurance and how better to pitch those companies, but you're also teaching those reps that are doing the presenting how to present, how to stand up in front of a group. Again, that's a skill set beyond just picking up the phone or sending an email and closing a deal. Those are skills that they're going to be able to apply elsewhere in their job in sports, whether it be with the Mets, whether it be with another team, whether it be with another industry. So again, teaching beyond the job, very important. Lastly, establishing a clear path to promotion. Right now with the A's, we're getting to that level. We're trying to work on it. We got to do a lot of selling internally to hire through and make it happen, but we are very flat in terms of titles. So we just pretty much had an account executive level, a senior AE level of some people that have been there for a long period of time, and then some managers, okay? So what I'm trying to do right now is put a clear path to promotion in place to get from an account executive to a senior account executive. So that if they're there for 2-3 years and they're deciding what they want for that next opportunity, I want them to have that in mind that they'll be there in year 3, and if they accomplish, hit a certain number of goals, present themselves the right way, whatever that path is going to be, they have a shot to get senior account executive. And if a rep's been there for 3 years, usually years 3, 4, 5, those are going to be good revenue years for them, they're going to be good revenue years for the company. So I want to try to retain people as long as possible, and we need to show them a path of promotion to do so. So before I move on here, does anyone have any interest in setup on their sales staff? Like, what are the different levels on your sales staff, and how do you grow from one to the next?
Jason, we have a sales development program, like your entry level, then the next step could be through sales, and then career sales. Where do you think people jump from the steps, so just get everything to
And then didn't you guys do something related to your premier staff as well? You've got 2 levels on the premier staff?
Yes, so you have your premier AE, and then you have a sales specialist, which is kind of like sales inbound, helps research and correct data.
And it's great having that kind of defined step there, so we can go from one level to the next and here's the Anybody else have any good setups? Brett?
Here at the crew, we noticed that a lot of outside salespeople are being particularly pushed to a season ticket sale because that's the majority of what inside sales work. So we actually developed a group with reps that we thought could potentially be good crew salespeople. We basically made them group sales coordinators and started turning a little bit of their focus and seeing that was having an option for them.
That's great. Anyone else? Okay, guys, this is my last and final slide. I saw this quote and I almost jumped out of my chair. I loved it. I feel like it embodies everything that I would want the Oakland A's to stand for, everything I stand for. It kind of speaks for itself. Now, the one disclaimer I'll put out there is, as of last night, Michelle is still in Oakland Athletic. I don't know if he's been traded yet or anything like that, so it still says Oakland A's right now, but I know he's kind of a hot commodity on the trade market. So it's not so much about the results, it's about the process. As we go through that process, it's where you find the real joy in repeating and being ready for every 5th day. You go through failure and you struggle, but you continue to work and find a way through it. That's the way any sport is, the way any business is. If you want to become the best version of yourself, you can. That's fantastic. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't have any other comments on it, but if I can sum up my presentation, it's that quote right there. So before we move on to the next speaker here, does anyone have any questions for me? Troy?
Seeing as how when it rains at your stadium, all of a sudden the sewage comes up, do you consider that an additional benefit or somewhat of a giveaway?
Yeah, we're going to put a membership program. That'll be on there, you know. Next, we go down to the dugout and check out the sewage. Get on the field. Anyone else? I couldn't think of a better spot to end than that. So thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it.